Alright, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. And I've been thinking about this for a very long time to actually do this, but I just I really didn't have all that much time to actually do this, because it's like, in an ideal world I would be able to just simply live stream everything as I do, and then I can just explain when questions come in, or just talk about what I'm doing in general. But first of all, the software support is still not there, and second of all, I kind of like sometimes find it hard to get into flow when I talk when working. So I think this is going to be the best of both worlds, at least for a little while, and then I have to kind of like eventually transition into live streaming, because this is just time wise it's just absolutely not efficient, and it's just very hard to actually get around to do this, which is that I have these screen recordings, and I've also like realized this like earlier on, that these videos are kind of hard to watch without any sort of commentary, and even like if you watch them, it's like very hard to understand what I'm doing if you don't understand the whys. So because what you see on the screen, what I'm doing, is just basically one solution to one specific problem. And usually for every single problem there's multiple solutions, and even the solution that I'm doing has like multiple layers in most cases, which just might not be obvious, or like might not make sense. So I just think it's much better if I just let these videos play through, and whenever I see something that's kind of worth explaining, then I'm gonna try to do it. And this is another thing, is like most of these videos is just me trying to like trying out stuff. It's like there's not a lot of maybe it's not boring necessarily, but once again it's just without any sort of commentary or without understanding the things that I'm going for. It again just doesn't really make sense to watch. It's very hard to make sense of it. And so, long story short, this is probably, if this makes it onto YouTube and I talk, if I'm happy with my first performance here. So if this makes it onto YouTube, this is going to be the first video of hopefully many, where I'm playing back the screen recording, and I'm going to hopefully explain most things that you see. And yeah, I will try to explain everything, and if there's still any sort of questions after you're done watching the video, and you saw something that I didn't explain properly, just leave me a comment, and I'm going to address everything in like the next video, or like maybe if I can answer in a comment, then I probably will just do that. But yeah, for the time being, I think the best possible thing to do is to play these screen recordings and try to like explain everything that's happening basically on the screen, what I can. And yeah, so let's do it. And the video is already playing, so this is again like a 4 hours long producing session, me making this remix. So as I've said, I'm kind of like trying out this for the first time, so I'm not really sure if it makes any sort of sense to like commentate through the whole thing, or I should just skip through. But I think I'm just going to skip through stuff like so just to briefly touch on like this whole thing, and this is again kind of like a good thing to just talk about the overall concept behind like entering remix contests and whatnot. And I don't really enter these remix contests with the intention of winning them. The number one intention for me is that the videos don't get taken down from YouTube, and I can upload the remixes to like Splice and whatnot, and there won't really be like a big issue from these things. But of course, if I win something, or like something good happens out of these, that's always like a bonus, and it's always like a great thing, obviously. But my main intention here is content creation. So this is maybe also something that I should kind of say, that if you're just beginning with producing, and you think that winning a remix contest will put you on the map or something, it's something that you can write in your bio, but like in general, not a lot of people will care about it. It's like, I mean, at least this is my experience. Maybe I'm just bad at marketing, and I just couldn't like properly capitalize on my remix contest wins or something. But what I found is that not a lot of people cares about this, sadly. So it's it's just a much better way to like focus on either like remixing like currently hot songs and then putting them on SoundCloud behind like a download gate or something, or like focus on originals and try to like sign those to like good labels. Those will help you like so much more than like winning any remix contest. And but on the other side, you know, entering remix contests, just like I have a lot of thoughts about this, but like just on the other side of this, if you're starting out with producing, like remix contests are a great way to progress, because in most cases you will get like an acapella that's like, you know, high quality, and um, in general, at least this is what my experience was like starting out. Is it was like very hard for me early on to get good acapellas to work with, and most of producing is basically, especially nowadays, like everything is like so much based around Spotify. It's like, of course, there are like still like club music which is like instrumental, but I would say like what I produce right now is like 99% like vocal music. So it's just kind of essential that you develop that skill to work your instrumental around the vocal. And in the case of remix contests, in most cases you will get high quality acapellas to work with, and that's a plus, where, you know, you can actually like develop this skill and work with great acapellas. So it's not going to be a waste of time, but I just want to kind of say that even if you win it, like don't expect anything like too grandiose to happen out of it. But for me, especially for me, like I think content creation is the future, and definitely live streaming, I think, is going to be like eventually what would, even right now, what would be the best case to do. But I'm just not really, like, because of software support, and as I've said, it's like I'm not really in that mindset at this point in time. You know, I need to like practice this a little more with like just screen recording and like doing stuff like this. But eventually I think live streaming is the future, and like there's just, you know, as far as content creation goes or live streaming goes, I think remix contests material to work with is like a great way to work on, and because it's very unlikely that it's going to get taken down, or like anything bad would happen copyright from a copyright perspective. So now let's get this out of the way, and let's actually talk about this particular remix. And as I've said, I'm not super interested in winning, but at the same time, I kind of want to give myself as good of a chance as possible. And to do this, so obviously I'm still going to have my own elements in every remix that I do and every work that I do with my own name, especially. So it's still going to be like there's still going to be like some trademarks from, like, you know, my Nalestar type of like sounds and production like techniques, so to speak. But in general, whenever I enter a remix contest, I'm kind of trying to tailor what I'm doing to the artist's like taste, and to the label, like the organizer's taste, basically. So in the case of future house music, obviously I'm going to be like a little bit more on the future housey side, or like a bit more clubby side. And yeah, as I've said, I'm still going to like have my own taste in it, but at the same time, I'm kind of like just trying to tailor everything as much to the potential label as much as I possibly can. And here, just I started out with this very simple concept of like this bass line, and I was just, you know, at this point in time, I was just looking for some leads to like see what's gonna happen. Even I have to like listen into what's happening. Yeah, so this is exactly like a part where I cannot really talk too much about this. I'm just, you know, loading up my presets, and maybe I can actually talk about my preset selection and how I organize stuff a little bit, because so in Logic you can save channel strips, which means basically I'm not only going to like save a preset here from the synth, but I can actually save like this whole bank with all the like plugins and effects and whatnot. And this is obviously just going to save me a lot of time, because in most cases from a synth, so a synth will usually come with like some sort of an EQ effect, some sort of a chorus effect, some sort of a reverb effect. But in many cases, I have a plugin that I already bought, and it's just, does that same job better. And in some cases where the sound itself is not super important, so let's say it's like, like a pad, which is like just in the background, I don't really care about what type of reverb is on it. But on the main lead and on the main bass, like in most cases, I'm gonna turn off these reverb effects that's on the synth, because, well, in most cases I just don't trust them as much, and I'm just going to use the plugins that I trust and that I know how they operate and how they work, and I like their sound. And so this is why I prefer to save channel strips instead of just presets and then go from there. Sometimes I only save the presets. It happens with certain sounds, but whenever I have the especially if I use the sound already in a previous track that I produced, then I'm going to save the whole channel strip with everything on it, and it should be good to go right away as I load it in. So this is what was happening here with the lead sound. But again, it's just a lead sound. I can't really say all that much more about it. You should definitely, like, if you don't have these synths, it helps a lot to buy all these synths. That my number one recommendation is still to this day is Nexus, because it's just so easy to use, and it's most of the sounds are gonna be high enough quality so that you can just work with them even if you don't really understand, or you don't 100% hear what's happening, you don't really have a treated room, or you just don't have your headphone setup sorted. And yeah, so but if you actually want to dive more deeply into synthesis and all these things, then obviously Serum is the number one contender. And then for other more analog emulation type of stuff, Diva and Hive are my favorite synths, and lots of Arturia stuff I've started using well, actually not that long time ago, maybe a year ago, and I'm very happy with how they operate. So all I'm trying to say is that if you don't have these synths, try to get them, and just go through the preset banks and save everything that kind of inspires you and that you want to get back to later. Yeah, basically just develop your own preset bank with your own kind of taste, so to speak. And yeah, this is what I did in the beginning, and this is what I'm doing still to this day. And it just makes working so much faster when you kind of know what you want to do, and you kind of remember that there was this synth that had this sound. If you already have a preset saved like that, it's going to be much easier to find it, because there's from every synth, I'm going to save out, let's say 20 presets or something from 1,000 sounds, because it's not just that from those thousands those are unusable, but those are not necessarily inspiring. Those are what I will go through out of those 1,000 once again when I'm just I don't even know what I'm looking for, and I just want to get something. But when I know what I want to look for, I want to have kind of a go-to preset bank that I built for myself, and this is what I kind of recommend for everyone to do. So once again, back to the to the video. I kind of remember what I was thinking here, because so I remember that I was thinking that it was a little bit too marching feeling, it's a little bit too it reminds me a little bit of 2015 EDM, which might not be really a bad thing, but I wanted to kind of break this flow a little bit, and so I ended up messing around, and I don't think I really found a good solution in this first hour. I just remember that I was still frustrated when when I ended this session, but yeah, this is once again it's a part where I can't really talk all that much of what's happening here. I started out with the vocal chop from the original track, which exactly at this point I'm going to create my own. This is also this is kind of what I believe is my one of my signature moves, is to create vocal chops out of acapellas. So yeah, here I also did my own, essentially, instead of just using the one that came with the song. But let me actually just fast forward into it, because these are, once again, I'm just looking for sounds. This limiter, though, I want to kind of talk about this a little bit, because this is also something that a lot of people are asking me Why am I using like Brickwall limiters on single channels? Because someone once told them in an Instagram like random post that Brickwall limiters are bad on single channels, and Jesus Christ. So the thing is, in the digital domain, so there are again multiple layers to this. In the digital domain, it's much easier to use a Brickwall limiter than a fast attack compressor. It's not going like in real life. If you have an 1176 like in a hardware compressor, like an outboard stuff, that's going to work well, not night and day differently than a plugin, but the use case of going extremes with it is going to be much easier in the real world. And the thing is that if you want to like really capture the transient of any single sound in the digital domain, a Brickwall limiter is going to be the best choice. And these types of Brickwall limiters, for example, the Pro L2 or the Ozone Maximizer, these plugins will, what you will be able to do with them is you will be able to fake dynamics essentially. And this is why I'm using them in 90% of cases. It's, well, basically it's multi-purpose. As I've said, there are multiple layers to this. Because on one side, I kind of want to, I want it to sound dynamic, but I don't actually want the dynamics. Once again, it's like this dynamics thing is like, again, something that I could like talk about for hours, why I don't really believe that in 2022 it's like a good idea to leave too high dynamic ranges. But let's not go into too deep into this right now, and let me just first explain this thing. Maybe I'll get back to this. But the thing is, Brickwall limiters on single channels are great because you can capture these peaks that you can see here, for example. So there's all these peaks that are getting captured here. The Pro L2 does a good enough job so that it still sounds like as if there's a transient, but actually the peak was captured. If I were to use the stock Logic plugin, for example, for limiting, it would not do this great of a job in like creating this like faking the dynamics, so to speak. And also not to mention that in many cases you don't really want the output limiter to deal with all the peaks if it's possible to like solve it. Sometimes like so this is also another thing that it's very important to understand. Like in many cases when people say that you should not use Brickwall limiters on single channels, it's because they create distortion. And this distortion, if you don't manage it correctly, it will be audible, and that's obviously not really that that's not great for obvious reasons. And it's important that you either use the right settings. For example, here with the modern setting, if I'm limiting like an acapella, for example, I will use the safe setting because that's going to create the least amount of distortion. So all in all, basically Brickwall limiters on single channels are in many cases like the best thing that you can possibly use instead of compression, like because this is essentially a substitute for like a real life fast attack compression. This is how you kind of want to think about it. And yeah, in some cases, like you there might be even cases where you like legitimately just want the distortion that a limiter creates, and those are like obviously like sound design situations where you might want to like distort a bass or like I don't know, like whatever you want to distort, and for those it could work too. But it's kind of important that when people recommend that you don't use single channel Brickwall limiting, they are like just want to like save you from distortion. But if you have a good enough room where you hear everything what's happening and you can 100% be sure that your limiter usage is not creating like any additional distortion that would be like audible to the listener, then these are a great tool to like either just simply like create this like fake dynamics, so to speak, and also to like just save your output limiter from a lot of strain. It's kind of also like a question of how loud you want to be with your master, because I already know like whenever I'm starting that I'm gonna get loud, so it's I should like treat these peaks as early in the process as possible. So this is why I'm using a lot of like single channel limiting, because this also will help me create a lot more headroom so that I can like push the output limiter like even higher. And once again, Brickwall limiter on a single channel, I just felt that the transient was poking out too much, and even though I wanted it to have this like transient feel, I didn't actually need that peak. Like that dynamic range difference was just, you know, too much. And here what I'm doing is this is actually like a very hopefully a very instructive point with percussive instruments. So what's a transient designer? A transient designer is essentially like a compressor slash expander, even more so. Expansion is basically reverse compression, but the whole point here is that I'm using a transient designer plugin, and I'm like raising up the attack on these percussive sounds, so that I make this pokey corrector like very very obvious. But then once this process is done, once again I'm going to put like a Brickwall limiter after this. Okay, so it's actually like limiting 21 dB, so that's pretty heavy. But once again the L2, like one of the best limiters for this use case, it gets rid of this peak, but it doesn't really get rid of the character of this transient pokey type of feel, which I kind of want to have with like percussive sounds. You kind of want them to cut through, but you don't necessarily like need them to like really cut through. You can just create the impression of them cutting through, and this is what I'm doing here exactly. And this is like something that I do a lot with hi-hats, for example, in many samples that I just download or like use from Vengeance sample packs. In many cases I feel that their transient is just not really that present, and so I'm going to push a lot of the times their transient up with a transient shaper plugin, like this one. But the native instruments, for example, is like also like pretty good. What I was gonna say is like, yeah, after it, if you put like a Brickwall limiter plugin, like you can set it to a better setting than what I did here. I was just putting it on, like setting it and forgetting it basically. But you can also like twinkle around a little bit with these settings and to preserve even more of this pokey type of feel, and it's going to create the impression of you having that transient while not really having it. So and the benefit once again is that you're going to have like more dynamic range, headroom at the end of the process, so that you can either go louder with the track you want, or you can just basically stage everything a little bit better, because you can be pretty sure that the levels will stay like consistent from one sound to another, if this makes sense. Just to like circle back a little bit to the beginning of this video, if you just saw this processing without the explanation, you would think that I'm crazy. Like, what is this guy doing with like double Brickwall limiting, with like, you know, pushing the transient shaper? It like makes no sense. But at the end of the process, if you listen to the song, these sounds are like kind of like still cutting through, but at the end of the day, I'm able to get the target loudness that I kind of want to hit. Yeah, and without actually sacrificing this kind of like sound. And so I don't really need to leave the dynamics, but I can create the impression of a dynamic like mixing, or I don't know how to say this, but hopefully you get the idea here. Yeah, here I'm just messing with the lead sound, and I felt that so overall I was happy with like this very simple rhythm pattern, but I kind of wanted to make it like somehow at least a little bit more unique. So what I came up with is that I just started messing around with the pitch bend at the end of like every pattern, so that it goes up. But obviously like this was too much. And it seems like I didn't remember where Diva has the the pitch bend sliders, but yeah, this is what I came up with in the end, and I think this is what ended up being in the final version of this remix too. So this is essentially just how I came up with this with this lead idea. But as I've said, in many cases when I'm producing, I'm just, trying out stuff. Well, yeah, it's like it's kind of a 50-50. Like in many cases I know what I want to do, but in many cases I just do not have a single clue what I kind of want to do. So I'm just gonna like mess around and see what works best. In mixing scenarios though, I would say it's more 95% of the time when I listen to something, I already know what I want to do. So explaining mixing videos will be, I think, a lot better than producing videos. But I also want to like kind of talk about producing because yeah, I just want this channel to be both about producing and mixing and yeah, everything basically about electronic music production, because at this point in time, and I think I'm going to end this video on this note, and I'm just going to continue with the next one from here. Nowadays in 2022, I think everyone who's producing is also like mixing and also mastering, and you kind of like should at least develop an understanding for these skills, even if you're not going to actively practice them. Because if you're a producer, you kind of want to know what the mixing engineer is going to so how a mixing engineer is going to look at your track. Because if you have no idea about like basic mixing principles, for example, you should not really stack sub basses or like like stuff like this, because then the mixing engineer will see that you have like multiple sub basses. He's either going to like throw out most of them or just going to get rid of the sub content of them, and then so when you get back your track, you will be surprised like what happened with my track, even though like because you didn't properly audition the track, you didn't know that there was like a technical issue with it. And so, well, long story short, it's just you kind of, if you're only thinking about producing, like you should like a little bit dive into mixing and a little bit dive into like mastering principles, even if you're not don't really want to go into too deep into it. And also the reverse, I think, is like true. It's like mixing engineers should also be at least have some experience producing tracks. And yeah, I just think it's you want to be able to do a little bit of everything at least. But in 2022, and this is what I started, what I wanted to explain, I think if you can do all of these, is what's going to give you the best amount, the best like chances, because the more processes that you can just do in-house yourself, obviously the better off you're going to be, and the more you are going to be able to dictate your own workflow. You're not going to be dependent on money as much, because you don't need to pay another someone to solve your issues. And also it's just like more time efficient. Like it's going to be on your terms how long it takes for you to finish a track, because you can do if you can do every process along the way, then it's only up to you, like how fast you finish it. That being said, in some cases, and especially if you think about like this is again mostly from beginner producers to intermediate, because if you're already like professionally producing for money and whatnot, then you're probably also like kind of like you can mix just fine. But if you want to like kind of like break in and want to have like you want to start stacking up like good performing releases on Spotify and whatnot, then I would highly recommend like paying someone to like do your mixes and masters and whatnot. Because even if your ideas are good, if it's not going to sound like at least good enough for the label for like a good label to pick it up, then like with the current landscape, like every single good label gets 2,000 demos every single day. So you don't necessarily need to like stick out, but you at least need to like look the part, or like sound the part in like this case. So if your track is just, even if the idea is good, if it's like sounds like not up to the standard, you're already out of contention. So in many cases it's like a kind of like a not really the greatest idea to just in the beginning of your career to like do everything yourself. But over time I think it's kind of a good idea to develop these skills, because if for nothing else, once again, you're just going to kind of like have an understanding of what someone who works on your track will kind of like want to do, as far as you won't send technically problematic stems to, like, you know, the engineer, which he or she will only be able to deal with, like either getting rid of stems or like muting or like drastically queuing stuff. And so yeah, this is the kind of the thought that I wanted to end this video. And yeah, thanks for watching, and hopefully this is going to end up on YouTube, and let me know what you think about like a format like this, and if what I talked about even makes sense. Maybe I talked too much about nonsense, and I should like get straight more into the point. And probably I will also, just in case someone wants to watch it, I will, without any commentary, I'm still going to release the like this, what you saw on the screen, the project producing walkthrough, or like as I'm doing it. But I kind of want to like talk through these things that I see on the screen, and I feel that that needs some explanation. So yeah, thanks for watching, and see you in another video.